You're listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast, where we explore the connection between a fit body and positive mental health. And our big mission? It's to help 10,000 runners to develop fitter minds in the next 2 years. I'm your host, Michelle Frost. Let's get moving. Welcome to this episode of the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. Today, we talk to Sarah Fawcett, and she tells us that her favorite thing about her running, the thing that means the most to her, is the friends that she's made from running. Enjoy. I am very excited today, like I am every time, but I am really excited to speak to Sarah Fawcett today. Hello, Sarah. Welcome.
Thanks, Michelle.
Sarah is one of the, I don't know, I was thinking if I have any other husband and wife. Interesting. I've had sisters and I've had like father and daughter. I was trying to think if I had any husband and wife once. You're like number 40 something by the time.
Oh, that's good. Matches my age.
So it's a few. Well, there you go. We might get into that. All right, Sarah, let me hear a little bit about your background. So where did you come from? Where did you grow up? That kind of stuff.
Well, my parents were originally from New South Wales, and I'm the only Tasmanian-born person in my immediate family. My sister was born in New South Wales, and I was the second last baby born at the Wynyard Maternity Hospital before they turned it into a psych hospital.
What?
Now it's an old people's home, so they've catered for me my whole entire life, which has been really good.
It's handy.
Yeah. I spent primary school years growing up down the west coast of Tassie in a place called Savage River.
Yep.
So the only thing that's left there now is the mine, but as a kid growing up, it was a really good place to grow up. We'd be, out playing cricket and footy in the street and spotlighting and all that kind of stuff. And then got to high school, and mum and dad decided it was time to send me to Burnie High School for my 7 to 10 years, and then went to Hell Yeah College, which is what we like to call it, us locals from down there. And then I left Burnie and came to Launceston to do a teaching degree at UTAS, and stayed here ever since. So little bush bogan to coming to Launceston, and still like being a bush bogan, but I guess it just changed into other hobbies rather than tadpoling. It was more like bushwalking and kayaking and climbing and stuff. But it was interesting growing up on the West Coast. I sort of been reflecting about the fact that we didn't really have a lot of team sport when I was a kid. So, I wasn't really into things like netball and that, because you might get a netball game once a term against another West Coast school. So, we were just really bush bogans that ran around and pretending we were bunyip hunting and finding tadpoles and riding your BMXs, but you're always outside doing something. And when the dinner bell rang, everyone went home and everyone knew what everyone else's kids were doing. So it was a really good place to grow up.
There was a dinner bell?
Well, your mum at the doorbell going, dinner's ready, pretty much. And everyone would go home for dinner and then come back out afterwards and maybe play a game of Spotlight. But it was a great childhood in the sense that you could be out and about and doing things, and everybody knew everyone's kids. So you knew you'd get in trouble if you did something naughty, but it was also good that people were like keeping an eye on people and making sure kids were safe. So I really think that that's something a lot of kids miss out on nowadays.
There's a lot of freedom.
Heaps of freedom.
I grew up on King Island and in a very similar sort of thing, but I assume even like you had a lot less people. There was like 1,000 people on the island or so, but of course everybody knew everybody and all of that. And still that West Coast feeling growing up there.
Every minute of the day you could be outside, you were outside. We had really good facilities because it was a mining town, and so they had squash courts, basketball courts, indoor heated swimming pool, 24/7 year round. So you'd spend your entire school holiday at the swimming pool. So most of us were pretty good water babies. So to me, the concept of not being able to swim is such a foreign thing.
What?
Even growing up on the West Coast. So, it was a great place to grow up.
So quite a small, like when we say small community, how big was, like, you went to school at Savage River as well? Is it primary school?
Savage River District High School. And you can ask me numbers. I think as a kid, you've got no idea about numbers, so I couldn't even take a guesstimate. But there were, I don't even know how many people worked in the mine in its heyday, but Yeah, I guess you probably had on average 20 kids in each class, so it wasn't
Oh.
tiny. It was a significant workforce, and the town itself was quite big. It's quite eerie to drive through there now because literally all the houses have been moved and there's nothing really left.
So it's not even a ghost town. It's just
no, the mine's still there, and I think they're still using the school as the singleman's accommodation, but there's no township itself anymore. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. So I guess you just that outdoorsy sort of thing just happened in many ways because that's where you were. And then when you found yourself in at Hellier, can you remember whether you did any sort of sport stuff at that point?
Well, I was more inclined to do outdoor education-based things. So really getting into bushwalking, did quite a bit of whitewater kayaking and rafting back in the day. And I actually at that stage decided that when I went to university, I was going to do PE teaching.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be an outdoor education teacher. So that was my main focus. I've always been, the kid on the basketball team or the kid on the volleyball team who was happy to get in and have a go, but I was as useless as anything. So, I was the kid that would get hit in the head with the ball and things like that. So, but I was still really happy just to get in and have a go. I think that's never bothered me. I've never been, really swayed by peer pressure or even though you don't feel like you're as good as everyone else, I think, well, you've got nothing to lose from actually just getting out there and having a go. And I always enjoyed it, even though I was not, one of the star players or anything. And you're probably the one that spent the most time on the bench, but just being in that environment and getting out and doing things was what I wanted to do.
Yeah. So do you think it's a hard thing to reflect back to that point in some ways, but can you think how you were feeling? I suppose I'm trying to, that love of movement that, perhaps you had from the West Coast, growing up outdoors doing things, and maybe that's one of the reasons that you were drawn towards some of these like outdoor education type of activities as well, that kind of love of being outside and the love of movement, and irrelevant of your performance, as you were saying.
Yeah.
Do you think that was part of it, or you just what you did? It's like,
I think it's just what I did, which is really funny because nobody else in my family, in my immediate family, is the slightest bit interested in anything that I do. So none of them have been into really. Dad played sport when he was a lot younger. Growing up in Sydney, he played rugby league. But in terms of anyone else in my family, no, they not at all interested in being active. So I don't know where it's come from. And in terms of, I think it's just I like being active. I like doing things. I like doing stuff academically as well. But I've always just been, I guess, what I've considered a bit of a plodder and a jack of all trades and a master of none, so to speak. And I just like having a go at things. I think life's too short not to try things, and you never know whether you're going to like it unless you actually have a go. And there's been things I haven't liked that I wouldn't do again, but
but you wouldn't know unless you gave them a go.
Yeah, so I just like being around people, and I guess sport itself and groups is quite social.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I suppose you're a bit attracted to the adventure of the outdoors and getting to places and seeing things that perhaps other people aren't fortunate enough to be able to do, because you're willing to put a pack on and hike for 5 days. And that's a privilege as well as something that you get a sense of achievement from.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I understand that as well. So you went on and you came to Launceston to do and went to university here to do teaching.
Yeah.
What sort of teaching did you
study?
So
I ended up with a degree in human movement, which is what they call phys ed, PE teacher degree. But the aim was to specialise in outdoor ed and teach outdoor ed, which I did do for roughly 12 months. And then I realised that it wasn't for me. The stress in regards to managing the risk-taking of other people.
So that responsibility level.
Yeah. In the end, I realised that it wasn't good for my mental health. And there was quite a period of time there where I struggled with a lot of anxiety around worrying about what if this had happened or what if that had happened, even though you might have had the best practices in place. But that's the thing about the outdoors, you can manage everything and then something can still go wrong, and that can be catastrophic. So
that's pretty challenging to deal with, isn't it? We've had a few instances in Tasmanian history regarding those things.
Yeah, so then I turned into being a maths and science teacher, which I love. So risk factor is pretty low, but the reward's really good. Yeah.
So you obviously that's high school.
Yeah.
level.
Yep. So I do
Um,
year 10 at the moment, but I moved out of teaching PE
okay.
because unfortunately a majority of the kids, they don't particularly love it. They don't particularly love maths either, but I just found it was becoming a bit of a challenge to get kids motivated to be involved at a particular age, to the point where primary school PE, great. Kids are enthusiastic, they want to have a go, they're still into skill development, but I just found that some of the cohort that you get as they get older, they're very fixed in their mindset. They only want to play basketball, or there's other things I don't want to do, even though, you try to change your models up and try to get kids engaged. It's not always that engaging. And I found that I enjoyed the classroom teaching more. So,
yeah. Okay. So how
And
long
what
have
I
you
love-
been in the classroom?
Well, I've been teaching for 20 years, which it still
No
feels like
way.
2. Yeah. I can't believe it, actually, when I think about that. I still feel like I'm like 27. I'm 43, and I'm actually the oldest teacher in the secondary school at the school I work at the moment, which says a bit about, we've got some really good young staff coming through, and I think that's really good for the kids. They relate really well, but at the same time, I still feel like I'm 23, so I don't feel like I've changed at all, lost touch with the people that I'm working with.
Have you stayed in a lot of the same, like, I know they move you around a bit, being that I've also got a teaching degree.
Yeah.
Did you stay in the same school?
So I spent
How
12
many
years
times
at
did you have to move?
one of the schools in town.
Yeah.
And then 6 years ago, I moved into one of the schools that's just on the outskirts of town. So
Okay.
a completely different outlook. Went from a school that, had 100 kids in a grade to a school now that has 27 kids in a grade.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah. And we've got K through to year 10, which is awesome. So
that is awesome.
yeah,
That would be
tying up shoelaces at recess time and then teaching quadratics at, after lunch, sort of thing. Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right, what year, this is actually just for me because I'm nosy, what year did you finish your teaching degree?
1999. So yeah.
Because I went back, and because I started my teaching degree at the normal time after school, and then I went and finished it, and I was actually at university at the same time in Launceston as you, but I would have been year 3 when you finished, and then I moved to Sydney, and I finished the bachelor in Sydney in 2000.
Well, there you go. We're pretty much the same generation, aren't we? And you've got a lot more show for it, I think.
10 years older than you. It's just like, I reckon we probably crossed each other's
undoubtedly, and it wouldn't have been at the uni bar.
Oh, no.
But that was back in the day where people were actually at the university, and you walked down, you actually dodged people going through the hallways. Now it's like a ghost town. But
and mind you, I had 2 children by then as well.
Yeah, well, that's I had nothing. I didn't even have a part-time job. That's how I was, just a student. That was enough for me to manage.
I remember. I think we had one lecture that started on a Friday. When was uni night? It was either Thursday or
Wednesday night.
So was it then this lecture started on a Thursday morning at something like 8:30. It was early, and the only people were there were the mature age students usually, because all the kids had been out at anyway. It was quite fun. All right, so back to your running. When did that start for you? So obviously you've been a bit of an outdoorsy person all of your life, and you've always had movement in some shape, including studying PE teaching and things. When did running start? You said before you were wondering when that was. You had to think about it a little.
I did. I remember running at high school was definitely not for me, because I remember we used to have to do the 1.6K test, the mile test.
Yeah.
I was always like one of the last kids in, and I was always getting the D when they give you a mark based on your time. It's just like, oh, this is just hard. I can't run. And Dad used to say, oh, you wouldn't be able to run outside on a dark night. So, I think I dabbled a little bit, did the Burnie 10 probably when I was in year 12, just because you lived in Burnie, and that seemed like a good idea at the time. Mm-hmm. Came up here to uni, did what I think a lot of people do at uni, maybe stacked on a bit of weight. So tried a little bit of jogging, nothing serious. I think what happened was John and I went and worked in the Northern Territory in 2009 and 2010. And 2009, I came home for Christmas, and my grandmother, who was very subtle at the time, said, oh, you've been living in a good paddock, haven't you? John and I had convinced ourselves that the water up there was so hard it was shrinking our clothes, and that's why they were getting tight. So
That's funny.
the second year we stayed, we actually rented a treadmill, and so we had a treadmill inside the little unit that we were living in, and we started like just doing, just short jogs on that. And I remember I was stoked when I was running at 8 kilometers per hour on the treadmill. I thought, this is, I'm getting really good at this. Now when I look back at it, I think, that was not that good. But it was
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, it was interesting living in the community because we tried jogging outside. But you could only jog early in the morning. And
Because of the temperature?
Yeah, there were two challenges. One, no street lights. And two, where we were, there's quite often horses in town that just kind of wander in of a night time to eat the little bushes they can find around the gutters and stuff. And so you'd be running down the road and the next minute you'd just about run into this horse that was pitch black and you couldn't see it. So I'm not a fan of horses. I got quite scared. So the treadmill was a good option for us. And then on weekends we'd go into Alice Springs and we found this nice little loop that would just run around one Saturday morning, and that's where it started. And then came home and kept up a little bit of jogging and let it go. And then I remember when I said to John one day, I'm going to start running again. And literally it was like the method that a lot of people use, the old telegraph pole. Right, we're going to run from this pole to this pole and then walk. And that was back in the day when I thought going through a 3K run was a big run. So, we had this little 3K circuit that we did, and just gradually build up to doing that. Did the Burnie 10 and kind of just kept happening after that. But the biggest thing for us in terms of our running has been the discovery of groups and the discovery of parkrun.
Yeah.
I think without those things, it probably would have been one of those things I'd probably start and stop. But now I think consistently we've been running, I'd say probably the last 8 years. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. Just plodding along, plodder power. That's it.
To me, running is so not about the speed. Like it's one of the things that you can focus on, but it's just not about that. There's so many other elements to why we get out there and do it. So it's funny because we all talk about it, like the speed.
Well, we've all got watches, haven't we? And you're all looking at your data and overanalyzing your data, and then I think it's really hard to switch off from that. But I think it's really important for running longevity to not get hooked on those numbers and just enjoy the fact that you're out there and you're doing it.
Yeah, because I think at some point, if you run forever, at some point they're not going to keep going up. Like especially when you first start, everything's a PB. But after whatever, it depends how old you are and all sorts of other factors. But eventually it will start coming down and you'll never hit those PBs again. Yeah. So if that's the only reason I think people do it, sometimes it can be very disappointing and it'll make them give up. So we don't.
Or injured. I know a lot of people that are driven by the numbers on their watch, and they end up with lots of injuries, which can be end running if you're not careful with it.
Yeah,
so I'm hoping to be like a lot of other people are still running when I'm old.
Well, then let's skip to that question. When do you think you'll finish running? How long will you run for, Sarah?
Well, I'll run for as long as I can in terms of injury. I think injury is the thing, and obviously just managing your health. I'd like to think that I'll still be running when I'm 70 or 80, but I guess it just depends what life throws at you in terms of your well-being. And like I said, I'm not somebody that goes out to run a PB. And I do, I'm like anyone. I do look at my watch data and I think, that kilometre was a bit slower. But then you have to give yourself that little talk about you were out there, you were doing it. It's important. You just getting out there and doing it regularly. Yeah. Otherwise, I'm the kind of person, if I just went off my numbers, I'd be like, this is it, I give up. I'm not going to do this anymore.
So what makes you continue to do it? What are the things that you say to yourself that make you keep going out the door?
There's lots of factors. One, the social connection. So on Tuesdays we run with running buddies. Thursdays I try to run with Old Train as a group. Yeah. Friday morning I've just started recently going to Friday Fresh. I didn't go this morning because it was raining, I think. Yeah. Anyway, I convinced myself it was raining in my half sleep. Saturdays is parkrun day, and then Sundays sometimes we do a long run with buddies, or sometimes just John and I'll go for a run by myself. So routine, being a member of the group and running with others, and one of the things I do it for is just to maintain weight, because I'm unfortunately one of those people that looks at food and puts on weight. So and
I'm a bit like that.
Feel better. Like I get home, I have to admit, half the time I'm driving in on a Tuesday or a Thursday night from work, I'm tired, I'm a bit dehydrated, and I think, oh, I don't want to go running tonight. You get there and you start talking to people. Next minute you've done, your 7-kilometre run, you're feeling good, you're chirpy, you come home, you do your dinner, do all your jobs and go to bed, and it's just been a better day, better way to finish the day.
Yeah. So those little chemicals that are popping off in your brain because you
Definitely.
did go for a run
Definitely.
have completely changed your state. You turned up, as you said, tired and like not feeling
Usually
all
saying
that.
I can't be bothered, and then
Exactly.
you get a run done and it's a good run. So
yeah.
And we've met so many good people through the running groups.
So that
sorry.
That part is really important to you, like that, the social element.
Yeah, and like this is our first year running with LRC. And I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I would join a running club, because running clubs for runners who run really well and race. So this whole concept of joining a club where people are actually racing against each other is not anything I thought I would ever do. But I just think it's, to me, the group of people that have been there this year. I mean, yes, you've got your pointy-end runners who are out there to win it and smash their times and have PBs, but they're still lovely people. But the group of people that have been around there this year just reminds me of parkrun, but it's handicap racing.
Yeah. There's just this other little spicy element in there, which means you're not always, I suppose you are surrounded by the same people, but it's different, as in those back markers catch you a lot later. They're not.
Well, hopefully, I try to get to the halfway mark before someone catches me, but that doesn't always work. So.
I think a lot of people have said that it's the people that keep them. Keep them coming in. It's often there might be a health reason. Maybe they want to lose weight. They just want to get some more fitness that starts them running. But it's the people that they meet that keep them running, which I think is quite fascinating itself.
Just looking at some of the people that ran with LRC this year, like Fiona, a mum's 5, and didn't miss an event. And it'd be so easy just to say, oh no, I can't go today because this or that. She's not the only one. There's people that are, on the other end of the age spectrum, on both ends of the age spectrum, people who you can see are carrying obvious injuries which make running really difficult for them, but they just keep turning up, and they're just good people and fun to be around. If you feel, when you leave parkrun, when you leave LRC, when you leave running buddies, when you leave Old Train, you just feel better for having been around the people.
And it's worth it. If you didn't have the fact that you were had a day full of work, being a teacher, would you be a morning or an evening kind of person to do your
morning person? So next year I'm not going to be a teacher. We're going to have the year off and travel, so I think most of my running will be done in the morning. Temperature will be the main dictator, but I used to only run in the mornings, and when I switched to afternoons I found really hard. I still find it hard in the sense mentally and, like I said, emotionally, so you're a bit tired from the day at work. Sometimes it would be easy for me just to go, no, I'm not going to go today, and turn the car and go home rather than going to the run or to the gym. But I always know I feel better for turning up and doing it, even though sometimes it's hard.
I think that element, especially if you're going for the run and there's people waiting for you, that also is a bit of a I can't not go because there's people waiting for me.
There's someone that
they'll expect
usually sends me a message about Friday Fresh, and she's like, "Are you going?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm going." And she's like, oh, "Okay, well, I'll come." And then sort of, we both turn up, or if one of us doesn't turn up, then we get in trouble with each other. So,
what do you mean I got out of bed early?
Yeah, pretty much.
For those of you who don't know, Friday Fresh is like 5:30 or something. Is that right?
Yeah.
30?
I think the first one I turned up to, because I've only new to it, I think it was the morning it was like -5 degrees. It was like, oh. And so I've told myself ever since then, if I can turn up that morning, I can turn up most. But not this morning. But I'm using the excuse it was the last day of term too, so I'm a bit tired.
So you also mentioned then the gym. So tell us a little bit about that. How do you use that to support your running, or is it just to support your overall health?
It used to be just to support overall health. I guess it still is. It was something I did before I ran. Used to go a lot more regularly, but now I find with my running in the evenings, I'm not getting there as often as I would like to. Running's taken on a real focus for me probably this year and last year. I was training for my first marathon, but I've had to give that away because of Melbourne and just COVID. So, and I'm not going to run a marathon in Melbourne in December when it can be 40 degrees. So,
yes.
Yeah.
Mind you wouldn't have, is it the plane trees? I've done a number of Melbourne marathons, the one I've done the most of, and they have at that time of year, there's like a seed that comes off one of the trees, which some people don't get quite irritated by. Anyway, that won't be around in December, but yes, it could be 40 degrees.
Yeah. So the gym, I only get to the gym a couple of times a week, and I've gone from sort of doing, I guess, a regular program to being more movement based now, just making sure I'm getting a decent range of movement with some weight bearing through the joints. So yeah, that's been more the focus rather than building muscle mass. But I got really lazy with my gym work when it came to running. I wouldn't do legs because I thought I was doing enough, but I've now gone back to doing legs because it's important as a runner to make sure you've got those strength in those joints as well.
It's funny, there's a lot of runners, including myself. I've been very bad at things like strength work, and yet it is actually the thing that will stop you getting, will reduce your chance of getting injuries as well, which is one of the things, the big, what we really don't want as a runner, is because injuries take so long to go away. So it's kind of impressive, I think, that you guys, because I know after talking to John that he's also doing gym stuff too, that you have that as your routine. And even more interesting for me is that you started that first, or that you've always done that, or you've done that for a long time, and then you put running over the top of it.
Yeah, and we also like to not so much in winter, but we do a bit of road bike cycling. And that's always been a really big thing for us. So we've got like the indoor trainer, which we ride in winter under the house because, I don't like riding outside in the bad weather, and it means you have to clean your bike too often. So, and it's just a safety thing. But, now that the warmer weather's coming, Sundays will probably turn from long run days into bike ride days again.
Okay. And you don't compete with any of that. So,
no.
Which is an interesting thing, like you said before about, you didn't think you'd join a running club, and that.
No.
Was there is that because of the competing side? Like, have you done a lot of competition-y things with your sports?
Never really. And I find that quite funny. I get quite nervous on the start line at LRC. I don't know why. Because
Me too.
I'm usually like, like a bit of self-sabotage and a bit of performance anxiety. I'd never be able to be a competitive person. It just really messes with my head, the idea of competing against people. I don't have the winning spirit or the winning drive in me to actually push myself. So I'm the kind of person that will run along and just say, oh, good job to everyone else as you go past me. And I feel much more at ease doing that than thinking, oh, this might be my week, or I can finish top 5. I don't ever think those things because I don't know, I think I'd just fall to pieces if I gave myself a chance. And then,
thanks to handicapping, it's quite potential of actually finding yourself in that position at some point.
I won't know how to cope when I do.
I know. It's like, oh no.
Exactly. I'll just stand here and wait for someone to go past first. Yes.
The problem with that is then the next week you'll probably find you're in the same position because you won't get pulled.
I'm just not good at thinking competitive thoughts. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I didn't play competitive sport as a young person.
Yeah.
So the idea of like racing or anything is not. I like the LRC. Racing. I like the handicap style. I usually, like I said, try to get to halfway before I let anyone go past me, but it doesn't always work out. But no, certainly not racing bikes. They're crazy anyway. It's too dangerous.
Do you find your nerves go once you start? Like once you start running?
Just standing on that start line, talking to Peter. He's like, I usually have a bit of a joke with him and do the old self-sabotage thing, but I don't know what it is about it, because I'm like, this is ridiculous. There's like nothing at stake here. What is wrong with you? But
it's interesting. It's interesting. The things that go on in our heads are crazy. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask. When it comes to goals, so because a lot of people will aim, I'm going to run that marathon, or there's that race or that whatever, and that's my goal, and so that's how I know what I'm going to run leading up to that, unless they're in some kind of coasting mode. But often people are sort of goal focused, and that sort of keeps them moving. Do you ever find that that's a part of your
has been for the last 2 years. So like I said, Melbourne was, I guess, the focus last year, and I think we got to a couple of months out when I realized it wasn't going to happen. So then I was like, okay, well, I'll stop doing my marathon training and go and do other fun things like scuba diving and stuff that I hadn't had time to do. And then this year, I think we got to, a couple of months out, or actually probably about 3 months out, when they were putting out the emails saying If you want to pull out, you need to do it now if you want to get your money back, because you won't get it back unless it's COVID shut down. So we'd made the decision, because I work for the government and they weren't keen on you leaving the state unless you had to, which is fair enough, to pull out early and get your money back. So even though I wasn't still training for Melbourne, we had a couple of events coming up. So we went and did the Flinders Island pub to pub.
Yeah.
So that's a really good event if you ever get the chance to do it.
It looked amazing.
Stunning. So that was 25.5K. And in terms of goals for that, my goal in any event is to run the whole way.
Yeah.
But I kind of also had a secret goal that I wanted to come in under 3 hours in that one, and I did. But I didn't tell anyone that goal.
Well done. Yeah. That's exciting.
Yeah. And then 2 weeks later, which was last weekend, we had the Scottsdale Rail Trail. And I have to admit, I was kind of like not in a very good headspace, and I didn't really want to be there. So I told myself beforehand, well, Sarah, you've got permission to walk part of this one. So I got to the 20K mark and then walked around the last 6K with someone once we got around the corner into the horrible headwind. So, but normally for me, that would be something I wouldn't be happy with, like walking.
Yeah.
One of those people that, you know, I'm a shuffler and a plodder. So I kind of feel like I've only done a run if I've actually gone the whole way running. But yeah, I coped okay with that. It was good because I had one of the running buddies with me, and we just sort of, you know, did the old tree to tree thing. And the last 6Ks wasn't as bad as it would have been otherwise. It was a pretty horrible wind. But,
yeah, it sounded like the weather was pretty atrocious.
Yeah. So yeah, no, usually just my goal is just to run the whole way.
Okay. I know I've got a coach in the Netherlands, and when you're training for longer distances, they actually put in there, as well as for the race, that we do like a run walk thing, which was really interesting. So the first time this year that I've had a go at that, and because
so is that based on the low heart rate training?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that does make a massive difference.
I know.
It's so frustrating when you first start, because you think, oh, why am I walking? This is so slow. I'm never going to get my 10, 15K run done. It's going to take me forever. Yeah. But in the long term, it makes such a big difference. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it is. It's quite interesting. She just, I don't know if she walked it, but she certainly kept her heart rate low. She just did the Rome Marathon on Sunday. Oh, wow. And she came 8th woman.
Wow.
He did 3 hours and 10 minutes. He's a bit quick. Anyway, it was just like, okay.
Yeah, I'd be more like a 5 hour marathon.
Yes, that works.
It does. Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
It's like, whoa, what?
It's like, for knowing a little bit about physiology, it seems so backwards in terms of going that slow to make you go faster in the long run.
Yeah.
Quite a bit to get your head around, but yeah.
I think it's not something you just turn up at the start line and do. It's that training to get your body used to it, and then your body runs at a slower rate. And when you're doing that, especially as age group runners like us, you're less likely to get injured, let alone get to the start line not injured. Too many age group runners. That's why they...
I don't think I've ever had an injury from running.
Really?
But I think that's probably because I'm such a plodder. I just plod along. It's like...
Well, that's probably just proof of what we're saying, you know, that if you don't always sort of... Because especially blokes, I don't know if it's testosterone, they're just always running as fast as they can. They don't have any other speed.
Yeah.
It seems, especially, you know, young blokes. So I wonder whether that's it, you know, that...
I don't know. I mean, I've done a few Ks in the last few years and managed to avoid injury, so I'm going to stick with it.
So do you call yourself a runner, Sarah?
I probably do now. Yeah, but I suppose I probably always preface it with I plod but I run, or I run but I plod, or like
that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a runner, but I suppose people have this perception of what a runner is, isn't it? And I guess that's the perception I had before I joined LRC. Yeah. That, you know, you don't join a running club unless you're a runner. But you know, I've learned so much that as long as you're running, you're a runner.
and perception really is. I mean, what your perception and my perception is true for me. Mine is for me, and yours is for you, and it's very individual. So it's always interesting to hear what people say when I ask if they think that they're a runner.
And isn't it interesting that we are so hard on ourselves, and yet if we saw anyone else out running, we'd be like, "Go you're a runner." Exactly. But if somebody asked you to make that comment about yourself, oh no, I'm not a runner. I can't run a 3.5 minute kilometre, or
like, I don't run fast, so I can't be a runner.
But we're happy to acknowledge that is good in other people. It's just that old brain, the old self-sabotage again, in terms of No, I guess the other thing in Australia, you're not encouraged to think good thoughts about yourself in terms of the old tall poppy syndrome.
Yeah,
That's interesting. And I think with my role as a teacher, you're constantly telling people that they're doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, that the growth that they've shown or the improvement that they've shown is something worth celebrating. And I think sometimes we need to cut ourselves a bit more slack in terms of tell yourself you've done a good job.
Exactly.
It's not hard, it's not easy to do. So yeah, I don't know why.
If you find yourself unlucky with an injury, how will you deal with that when it comes to what's going on in your head, do you think?
Well, I've had injuries, just not running injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Like I got taken out by some toddlers in a playground last year, and
that injury, that old chestnut.
Yeah. Now all my friends stood there and laughed at me. So I've had a couple of not very nice ankle injuries over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, I find it really tough, particularly if you've just been a bit unwell or something. You turn up to an event and you're watching everybody else compete, and you want to get out there and have a go yourself, and you feel like you're such a piker that you're not out there doing it. That is hard. But at the same time, because we've got quite a variety of things that we can do in terms of our interests, bike riding, swimming, all that kind of stuff, there's always something to do. But I don't think you ever get the same feeling from anything else as you get from running. I don't know what it is about running. You can run for 20 minutes and feel like you've had a good workout. Whereas on a bike, unless you're doing, I suppose, speed work or something, you know, you sort of think if you haven't done 50-kilometre ride, you haven't done it right. So, yeah,
you don't get the same bang for your buck, as you said earlier. So with running, when you're running, what are you thinking about? Sort of, you don't have to give us like details, but what's your mind doing?
Usually when I start running, it's like, I don't want to do this. and then about 10 minutes into it, I think, oh, this is starting to feel really good. Oh, this is great. And then sometimes I don't think about much. Sometimes you're thinking about what's happened in your day at work and a bit of problem solving and maybe, something you need to help someone else with. It's probably usually based on what your day at work's been like. But if I'm actually training for something and it hasn't been a day at work, like a Saturday or a Sunday, it's usually just ticking off the goals. It's like, okay, looking at my watch, thinking, right, well, that's the kilometre pace I want to do. This is the distance I want to be at. I've got to here. I've got 10 kilometres to go. So it's more that ticking things off the list. Not a very deep thinker, obviously. I don't think about whether penguins have knees or why belly button fluff's blue. But yeah.
One of the things that I'm playing with at the moment is the idea of mindful movement. So, and in that, for me, that's mindful running. And that is like not thinking about anything, like to actually just be in the moment, that running moment. As you said before, running, nothing else can make you feel a certain way. And that's not just when you finish a run. There's also, the moments when you're running where everything just seems to be moving fine and you're not really thinking about anything, like you said before, and, the wind's in your hair or whatever. And it just feels good. You're just there for however many seconds that lasts in your brain. But you're not necessarily processing the day or sorting stuff out. So, let alone doing
a long run by myself. I'll wear headphones and maybe listen to a podcast, or generally tend to just listen to music because I don't want to have to actually concentrate on anything. So if I'm listening to a podcast, it's more of you want to sort of pick up what people are saying. But when I'm running with other people, I don't listen to music. But I'm not a talker when I run either. My best friend Kendall, she loves to yabber the whole time. And basically she just talks at me because I'm just like, Kendall, I can't talk when I run. She's like, yeah, I know that. I'm just talking. And she'll just keep talking the whole run, which is great. But I'm not one of those people that can talk and run. It doesn't matter how slow I'm going.
I can, but I'm quite gifted at asking questions that take a long time for the other person.
Making other people pass. Yes, well done.
Long-ended questions, not yes, no questions. And not, very open-ended questions, put it that way. So you've touched on the fact that you did the rail trail, which makes me ask the question, where do you prefer running, like on the road or up in trails and things like that? And of course you've done ultra bits and pieces as well. What do you like best?
I think I probably prefer road running in the sense that it's easier. You don't have to concentrate as much. You can sort of look up and around a bit more. But the trail running I like because there's a certain license of freedom in trail running to walk. So it's okay to walk up the uphills in trail running. And sometimes it's nice to give yourself a little bit of a break with that as well. but I like the solitude of long runs. So I didn't mind being out on the road at Flinders by myself.
Yeah.
And I quite like the solitude of trail running. So I did the blue tier a few years back.
Oh, wow.
It was like it's meant to be, I don't know, 32 Ks or something up through the bush and up through there. And I was the slowest competitor. So I was at the back from the beginning and I was the last one in. I think they were probably worried about me being out on the trail so long by myself, but it was just beautiful. It was beautiful to be out in the bush. It was exhausting and it was a challenge and probably the hardest, well, actually, no, definitely the hardest thing I've ever done in running.
Wow.
So I like the challenge of both. Yeah. It depends what my goal is at the start at that time, I suppose. I like the ease of running on the road, but I quite like being out in the bush as long as there's no snakes or anything.
Which occasionally in Tasmania there are.
Yes.
Just occasionally, but not all the time.
I know.
You mentioned running with people and running by yourself. What kind of mix do you get just in your everyday life, every day, every week, I should say, of that? Or is it mostly running with people at the moment, or do you manage to get...
Mostly been running with people at the moment. But my longer runs I tend to do by myself because I don't know, there's just something nice about being out there and just being able to plod at your own pace. There's no pressure but I do enjoy running with other people because it makes you run a bit harder and run a bit faster too. I think I'm naturally like a bit of a slow plodder, so being around other people is good for me in terms of improving my fitness. But long slow run I prefer to probably do on my own.
So how do you get out the door? Like one of the biggest, I love running. Obviously, I've run most of my life. I love running. But there are days where I just don't want, in fact, there's seasons sometimes where I don't really want, I have to really push myself to get out the door. Other times where it's, no problem. Do you have any tricks or anything that you do to get yourself out the door?
Yep. So routine, obviously, just having those days during the week where you have the groups that you might meet up with. I always pack my running bag the night before and make sure it's ready just to throw in the car. I get changed at work at the end of the day and then I drive to wherever I'm meeting people or I'm running by myself and try not to come home in between, because I think once you come home, that's probably the temptation is to, find your pajamas, get in the beanbag and read a good book sort of thing. So, but I think just routine. And like I said, for me, it's important mentally and just physically in terms of trying to maintain a healthy body weight. I'm never going to be a thin person, but I certainly, it does help me with keeping things under control a bit and making sure I can eat something yummy on the weekends.
I'm a bit like that too, so it's like I'm totally like that actually. But it's funny how other people see us. We were talking about identity before. Someone I spoke to the other day for the podcast, who's known me for a long time, is like, I've always admired you because you've always been so fit. And I'm like, no, just because you keep saying, things like, you think that you're never going to be thin or whatever that is, but that's just your perception. You'll find that most people who see you don't have that same perception.
Oh no, but if you see my running photos, Michelle, they're always shocking.
My running photos, like, oh my gosh.
I think some people love it when the photos come out after an event. I'm the kind of person that just keeps scrolling and somebody will tag you in one and it's like, oh, do I look or don't I? It's like, oh goodness me, that's not a good one. I think I don't mind taking having a laugh at myself and stuff. So when we went to Flinders to do the pub to pub, we'd done park run that morning and I tried to do a jump shot and I literally just looked ridiculous, but I put it on my Facebook page because I knew it would give everyone a really good laugh. It was just like a frog that should never have been born. The image is just not good.
I think it's just practice. If you want to get good at jump shots, you just bend the knees. You got to.
I know. I got plenty of air. It was just like the whole body shape and the facial expression, which wasn't great. So, but like I said, I'm happy to poke fun at myself. But if it encourages other people to go, oh, actually, parkrun is for everyone. It's like, I can go along. You don't have to look like a marathon runner to turn up to a parkrun event
and have a good time.
Yeah.
I think. How do you think if running has improved your life? So now you've been running for quite a number of years now consistently. How do you think it's improved your life? So if you didn't have it in your life now,
well, obviously there's the physical health benefits and the mental health benefits as well. I think just life can be stressful and you don't generally feel stressed after a run because you've had time to process things.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing for me is we have made some amazing friends through running. And
Yeah.
I think often your friends tend to come from either friends you've had for a very long period of time, or they tend to be friends that you make in your workplace.
Mm.
And workplace friends are great friends, but it can also be fraught with politics at times when you might have to make a decision that they might not agree upon.
Yeah.
So the freedom that these friendships have brought me has just been immense. Like, I think, my closest friends now are people that we run with, in terms of, whereas in the past they might have been people that you have spent a significant amount of time working with. Whereas, so it's nice to have that divide in life. Like, I've still got friends that I work with who I consider to be good friends, but it's just nice to be able to turn up to your running friends. You don't need to talk about work. You talk about the most ridiculous things. Runners will talk about anything, particularly toilet habits. I'm probably the worst at bringing up those conversations, but it's just, I don't know, good people who encourage other people, who do anything to help people. So I think, we've made amazing friends across all the groups that we have been lucky to be a part of. They're just really welcoming.
It's interesting. Like, a lot of people have said that, and that it's the community, as I said earlier. And we've talked a bit about in the podcast about why these relationships develop when we're running. And I think it possibly happens in other sports as well, but certainly when you're running and you're running side by side with someone, you can talk about things actually that you wouldn't share even sometimes with your best friend if you're just sitting there at a coffee, looking at each other eye to eye. And so even there's some people that I've been running with for like 15 years consistently, twice a week. And we often say we know more about each other's personal lives than our family does, even, because all the minutiae, as you were saying before, that was the toilet things, that it's often like the kid things or just the things that are going on in life, which are just whatever's, but you just share. And because it's less confrontational or whatever, when we're just out there running, so I think maybe that's a part of why we develop relationships that are so solid, I suppose. And
I guess you're quite vulnerable when you're running too, because like everything is on display and there's nowhere to hide. So in the sense that if you're a fast runner, like the fast runners run together and the slower runners run together, and you just find things in common. And you're right, you do share things that you probably wouldn't share with other people, whether it be in a flippant comment or whether it's a deep and meaningful during the run or at the end of the run. You do know a lot about the people you run with.
Yeah, it's interesting. There is actually, I did hear a study from a podcast or something I was listening to while I was running, where they were saying they've done some studies on it, and it is actually that the not looking, especially good for blokes, but I think it works for women as well, but that non-confrontational kind of conversation that you can have. So fascinating, I find. And that's obviously very good for your mental health, as we all know, to be able to have people we can talk with, even just about little things that are bothering us. So
the other good thing about running in my life too is I've been able to like give back through parkrun as well. So doing just started as a volunteer and then doing the run director stuff, you feel like you're actually making a positive contribution to people's health and well-being. So that's been really good. I'll be giving up the run directing at the end of this year because we'll be away traveling. But it's been nice to see that other side as well, and see those people that, that turned up for their first parkrun and they come back with a smile on their face, or they've been going to parkrun for, 2 months and they've finally managed to come across the line. They're so excited because they've run the whole way for the first time, or, they might be the walkers who've got a PB. They started out walking, it was taking an hour 10 and now they're down to 55 minutes. So it's nice to see that and be able to encourage other people to
be part of it.
Yeah.
You're going away next year in a camper van around Australia, as long as COVID allows. Well, I'm sure it'll allow you to leave, but you come back.
No, I'm sure. Be stuck in the desert somewhere, but
we'll be sorted in some way by then. How are you going to continue your running? How's that looking for you?
Don's very good at keeping routine. So, he'll probably have one of us running along the side of the van as we go across the Nullarbor while the other one drives, and then we'll snow. It's just routine and making sure it's built into part of your everyday life. We have done the Lap of Australia once before with the little 16-foot pop top, and it's just a matter of, Monday's running day, Tuesday's bike day, whatever. Just trying to build it in. Obviously, that depends a little bit on where you are at the time, but certainly lots of that's the good thing about running. You basically need a pair of shoes, in my case a good sports bra, and then some shorts and a t-shirt, and you can run anywhere.
Yeah, that's true. I guess for me, because we've done a lot of travel as well, and sometimes the running, it was because you don't have the routine anymore. Even though, yes, you develop a routine in your travel, especially when you're doing that kind of travel, it's you kind of got to make sure it's in that routine, okay. So if we're driving, working out how that works with your runs and making sure you still have time for that.
We'll just make sure we get up early in the morning and do it. I guess again, that's the good thing about parkrun. It's just about everywhere now. So we'll try to visit as many as we can. And if there are some other fun runs that we see online as we're traveling around that we sort of know we're going to be in the right area at the right time, we'll sign up for them.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
We're heading off too. I don't know if you knew that.
Sure. Yeah. No, where are you going?
We're going to do the same. Well, not the same thing, but you're only going for about 3 months, though, probably most of winter.
Nice.
So, we may or may not run into you guys.
Well, you never know.
Who knows? So, who else? There was someone else doing it too. Anyway, like from our expanded group, I'm like, that'd be funny if we all kind of caught up.
Well, I think some of the running buddies are hoping to come and meet us somewhere for a run, which would be nice.
That would be so cool. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So is there anything about running that you really want to share that you think we haven't touched on?
I just think that people need to understand that running is for everyone. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say that, pop down to parkrun on a Saturday morning and just stand on the finish line and watch. Even if you're not confident enough to come and have a go, just come and have a look. Because I think until you see a running community like that, you do think running's for competitive people, and it's not. It's for everyone. And start out slow, I guess. There's a lot of good apps around in terms of starting running. Don't expect to just, some people will be able to, but don't expect just to be able to get off the couch and go and run 10K and, feel good afterwards. There are occasional freakish people that can do that, but allow yourself, I guess, the time and space to actually build up your running. And it can be from telegraph pole to telegraph pole. And I guess the other thing is that if you are worried about people watching you probably don't need to worry, because most people will be thinking, go you, good on you for getting out there and having a go. And I think there are people you need to worry about. So
that's so true. I couldn't tell you how many times over the years just running it, like all over the world actually, where other people walking, say in a park that I'm running, they very rarely don't smile at you.
Yeah.
And if you say hello, they look like, oh, you get all those positive comments. You get like, so people are happy is what I'm saying, to see other people out there doing things, even if they're not doing the same thing as you. I
suppose the other thing to consider too is that you might not be the fastest runner, or you might not have the most expensive gear and all that kind of stuff, but there's a lot of people that can't even have the opportunity to run, whether it be from an injury or places where they might live, or they might be working ridiculous hours and those sorts of things. So even if you feel like you're not in the top echelon, it's almost like being thankful that you can run. And I've had to be told that several times myself when I've had a bit of a whinge about, that was an awful run or whatever, and like somebody's like, well, you're out there and you're doing it and you can do it, so stop whinging. It's like, okay,
exactly. You put your shoes on out the door. And you're doing a lot more than the person sitting at home on the couch.
And sometimes that's by choice, and sometimes that's because they don't have a choice.
Totally.
A bad run's better than no run.
I think that's true. And in fact, I don't think there's any run, even though it might have hurt, where I haven't like, oh, I'm so glad I did that now that I've done it, even if it was a really hard run. It's like, yes, I'm so glad I did that. Okay, so you've kind of already touched on it as well, but are there any other tips you'd like to give to a beginner runner or somebody coming back from a long time not running?
I think, if you can afford to get yourself a decent pair of shoes, that would be the starting point in terms of any kit. That's really important, just in terms of looking after yourself. And like I said, just building up gradually. Don't go out and try to smash out 10K on top of 10K, because that's when you will end up getting injured. And you will have days where running is easy and days when it's hard, but it's just to me, it's about routine and making sure you just get out there and do it.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, stay on because I'll say goodbye to you off the recording. But it has been awesome to have you on here, Sarah. And there's been no bleep moments for everyone. Sarah thought we might have had a few bleep moments because maybe she doesn't mind creating bleep moments occasionally, but we haven't had any.
My mum would still smack me.
Not that we've stopped recording it. So, thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. And it has been awesome to hear from you. I've really enjoyed talking with you, and it has been inspiring. It's been really cool. So thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. I'd love to talk to you about your running journey. So send me a message on Facebook or on the website, and let's do it. For a bunch of resources on mindful running that will help you get and stay mentally and physically fit, head over to the website fitmindfitbody.co, and I'll see you there. Plus, I'll be back here in your podcast player a few times a week. Hit subscribe now so that you don't miss an episode. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a review. It'll help more people to find the podcast and get inspired to start running. I'll see you soon. Bye.